Welcome to Reanimated. Hi, everybody. This is Stuart from California. Joining us today are H.A. Conrad in New York. Hello.
Hello.
And Kyle up in sunny Seattle. How you doing today?
It is sunny.
Yay.
For once, I get to not just be coming here from the gloom.
First nice time in like 50 days, right?
Oh, it's improving every day. I'm getting more and more light. I'm getting more and more sun.
Well, happy podcast day, everybody. We are back to talk about All of Us Are Dead, episodes 4 and 5. And we are going to jump right into it because other than a little bit of video game haps, we don't have a lot of news that isn't spoilery, at least, about All of Us Are Dead, or that isn't about some sort of zombie mode on Call of Duty Vanguard, which I don't really care about.
No, is Dying Light 2 still fun for you, Stuart?
I have reached the end of that road. I feel like maybe pending some patches. It remained very strong. It's just, I think, writing for video games has to be extremely challenging because of the choose your own adventure elements of it. You have to write multiple iterations and write dialogue based on all these different choices you could make. And I ran into some like dead ends or anachronisms at the end of the story, or in the third act anyway, where suddenly people who I was on good relations with are treating me like I've been their longtime enemy. This is like, no, okay, this is working. I made very consistent choices throughout this story. And so I found that to be a little disappointing. I don't often feel like games get rushed past QA, but this one, it starts to feel that way. But then it's probably, if you take every single choice that you could make in this story and lay out all of that story, all the different branches, it's got to be like 200 hours of gameplay at least, if not, I don't know how many hours of dialogue and how much script that is. But it's a little jarring when you find an error. So, and that's what I did. And so it kind of broke me out of it a little, which was a shame.
Yeah, that's too bad. I think it's really tough because the other option that you could do is just have those choices be totally inconsequential. And that doesn't feel narratively satisfying either.
Right.
So like, in Skyrim, for example, like you can go like be a mage at the college, and then you can go be like an assassin with the Assassin's Guild and that kind of stuff. But none of them change anything about the story. Nobody shows up. When you show up somewhere, no one's like, oh my God, the assassin's here.
Right.
Like, I heard that you killed everybody in this small town. Like, they're just like, it's the same as if you did nothing and just rushed straight there. So I think it's really tough. And it does require a huge amount of effort. And video games wrapping up in the last couple of years probably have had a really tough time getting the, acting and writing and QA and dev teams all in the same place.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Skyrim is a good example because the main plot line has nothing to do with any of those side quests. And yeah, like
nothing at all.
You can just do them all and no biggie. Another piece of video game news actually that did come out this week is the Dead Island 2 or 3 is now, again, somebody has reported that it's still under development. And HA, we watched the teaser video for this. I didn't even know, like 5 years ago. Yeah. There was some dude taking a jog on like on a boardwalk in Southern California. It felt like
it looked great.
It looked great.
The trailer looked fantastic. It was really wonderful. But that was a long time ago.
Then it fell away, and now just after Dying Light 2 comes out, they're just like, yeah, we're still working on it. We'll see. I don't know. That seems a little far-fetched.
Like, I really, really want I do want to play these games very badly. But I've been getting like weird about crossword puzzles, like obsessive about that. So I can't, to me, if I get involved in these kinds of storylines, I'm probably never going to leave my house, and it's probably not a good idea. But at the outset, it seems really like something I would like. So maybe I could find a happy medium. I don't know.
I mean, I hear
But
you say a lot on this podcast, HA, like, oh, I would like to, but I'm
no,
worried. But I
okay.
don't see you ever actually dip your toe in the water, other
Well,
than
this
with
is
crosswords, which is, come on.
well, the crosswords is, but it's like, okay, so I like for me with like the game stuff, it pushes whatever buttons in my little brain that are like, I need to do more of these. And like it's really hard for me to stop. Like so I will share yesterday I was on the subway and I like got so involved in the crossword that I missed my stop, but didn't realize until 5 stops later. So, and that's a crossword puzzle versus a narrative cool game that I would be like really focused on, like getting through the whole storyline and like I would dedicate that time and I would probably do it at the sacrifice of everything else. So I guess what I'm saying is that I think with games I have a bit of an addictive personality.
Okay.
So I do want to try these and maybe I can somehow give myself a limited, if I could have something where it like would shut me off after a certain point, like a kill
Netflix's
switch.
like little like, are you still watching little
No.
screen? Or
Yeah.
Kyle, that wouldn't be enough. I think it would have to like boot me out of the system and be like, all right, you're done for the day and you're not allowed back in
I
until
feel like the Nintendo Wii used to have a
Yeah.
nag screen that was like, you've been playing for a long time. Like,
You
are you
should
sure you
take a
don't want to go
break.
outside? Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, I feel like those have fallen out of vogue again, but there was a long stretch of years when games would do that. Be like, hey, you know what? Just take a walk. I think it was when people were like dying in internet cafes playing StarCraft because they'd just been doing it for 4 days and didn't take a break.
In some ways, these narrative games, AJ, might be actually better than something open-ended. Like, Stuart, what do you think? Maybe 15, 20 hours you sunk into Dying Light over the course of a couple weeks?
I'm not, no comment.
No comment.
Ah,
It's like
see?
a long TV show, but
Mm.
if you get into like, Destiny or something like that, that just never ends. So you can get really sucked into that for
Right.
years and years and years and years, but you can play through The Last of Us in, 6 or 7 hours. So,
All right, maybe I'll take it under advisement. But in the meantime, I think we should chat about what we're supposed to chat about today.
One quick aside. Have you guys talked about The Last of Us ever? Do you guys consider that zombie?
Well, yeah, we when the show was announced, or not when it was announced, but we have belatedly said, whoa, this show's coming out this summer and it's kind of important. And so we are keeping an eye on it. We have not talked about the game because I am famously not a PlayStation owner.
Yep.
Oh, right. Okay.
Right. So that's
I wish I was. I've been trying to buy a PlayStation 5 like half-heartedly. I'm not going to race someone because someone on Twitter says that they're available at GameStop if you will subscribe to the club. I want to buy it when it's convenient for me. So when I can buy a PlayStation, I will, and then maybe I will give Last of Us a shot. But I'm excited for the show.
Yeah, when the show comes, I'll definitely be watching that one, and I might join you as a game player because I've played both.
Oh,
great.
great.
Yeah. I think that would be great because obviously I can't talk about that. maybe things will change by that time, Kyle. I think I don't know. I get more like every time I hear Stuart talking about it, it makes me want to play. So maybe I should try it on a limited basis. I can already hear Bill like saying no. But
so in episode 4, there are many things that happen, notably orange gibberish. There's a long conversation about pooping and montage about making bathrooms.
On multiple levels in 2 places.
I loved the opening. This episode is like way funnier than the show has let itself be in a little while, and I was all here for it. Like the entire opening scenes with them each just constructing a bathroom. I liked it, although like I was like, yes, finally a show that like is actually going to talk about some of the practicalities of surviving. But then they totally go off the rails and don't spend any of the rest of the episode actually trying to get the things that they say they're going to need. Like they have this very serious conversation where they're like three days without water.
Mhm.
3 weeks without food, blah, blah, blah. But then like they don't go to try to get water anywhere. Like so this spun their wheels a little bit for me, but this whole pooping and peeing montage just had me cackling. I thought it was so funny to see both the high schoolers and also the kind of assembly people and firefighter
Yeah.
folks assemble their little makeshift toilets.
Well, and I liked
okay.
the nice symmetry too, because it was like
Mhm.
Anjo kind of helping to organize one, and then her dad's doing the other one, and and then they're at like all as like a team, this group of kids in honestly like a pretty awkward situation, but they treat it with a lot of humor. So I think that was a welcome switch, I think, in tone, at least for a little bit.
I agree that there was a lot of it was a much lighter tone, and it's a montage, so montages are generally lighter. But it's that selection of scenes and Orange Gibberish, who is this like streamer guy who gets lost in Hyosan,
Yep.
and those are bracketing Chiang San's mom getting onto campus.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
it's a little lighter and brighter, but also there's a horrible thing that has happened that he still doesn't recognize that has happened, because not only does she show up at school completely unprepared, she's just so committed to getting there. While, by the way, he's telling Anjo that she only cares about chicken restaurants. And she sees Youngsu and is like, Youngsu, it's me, Chong San's mom.
I know.
And the things go badly.
Well, I admit I was a little surprised that they took her out in this way.
I
I
was half convinced she was going to be like the commando at the end of the season.
Yeah, like I thought there would be something. I just didn't, I wasn't expecting it, and I was like, wow, that is dark. Like I kind of knew it the minute she called out though to Gyeonsun though, because I was like, oh, that's not gonna end well. Um and I do, the orange gibberish thing where it's sort of like, I mean, the thing I liked about that was just sort of seeing how it's being perceived from the rest of the world, and they don't really believe it or think it's a game. And he's out there, and the reactions and the way that they film this, where you can kind of see his followers like telling him to do things or commenting. I thought that was pretty like a good switch, sort of to see what's happening in other places and how the filter of social media is changing what people think about this.
I think we
And
must have missed so much. Like because there was a lot of text scrolling by there,
oh
but
yeah,
we
we do. I
we
certainly
only
don't
got
understand. We got a couple of like
a
highlights.
couple, yeah. So I think they must have had a lot of fun coming up with that, and I think there was a bunch going on there that we just didn't get
Yeah,
to see.
yeah,
And,
but
and
I
it's
liked, I liked the change of that, like getting that perspective and having that kind of thrown in the mix. I really liked the way that they decided to have that be the opening here.
and the just the ridiculousness of him saying please like and subscribe while he's
Yeah.
like not getting chased, but in between being chased by zombies and like
Uh,
terrified for his life, he's still saying to people,
and
please
let's talk about my own personal nightmare, that little like kindergarten school or whatever it is, and
Oh
they're all
yeah.
chasing after him, and I'm like, the minute he walked in there, I'm like, this isn't going to be a good scene for me to watch.
I
But
feel like the restraint that the production showed in the sequence was that none of the kids got close-ups with like zombie makeup.
no, no, no.
It was just a bunch of kids in orange tracksuits or yellow tracksuits running after a man and chasing him. And I
it
don't
was
know.
it was it was comic, and no
Yeah.
no kids got close-ups, and also no kids, like, because he's not proficient yet at zombie
Anything.
stabbing, nobody got like anything through the head or whatever, so it was just hilarious.
But that scene is unresolved, and so I think we'll probably have to see either that preschool again, if not zombie kids again. I don't know how they're going to do it tastefully, but we'll probably be back to our orange gibberish. We leave him just kind of like he's dropped his phone finally and is like just sitting on top of a slide.
it was like when they all come running out of the little classrooms, I was just like, oh, this is really, it was terrifying for me, but it was also really well done. And so anyway, um I think, I don't know, I think they're gonna probably go pretty dark with it, but we'll see. um
We've also had a couple of scenes, or there's a bit of a theme of the kids, at least at the school, looking around at everything around them and they are like at the end of the second day, I think, of the apocalypse, and they're looking around saying, or maybe it's the first night actually when this episode starts. You know what? If they were going to come for us, they would have by now. Namra says, "Do you know who my mom is? She would tear this place apart to find me," which I think is a hint that her mom is maybe the assembly woman or someone else who we haven't met yet, who is powerful. So that'll be interesting to see, because that probably does mean there will be some sort of a mission, an official military rescue mission to the high school at some point. And I think the trailer kind of suggests that there will be also.
Yeah, my bet is on the assemblywoman too, because I feel like that probably makes the most sense. But and I do think that the commentary and the conversations between the kids just about and how they're feeling, because I do think that they expected that they would be rescued, or that there would be somebody coming to help them, and that didn't happen, and it's still just like field full of zombies there. And they're also deciding what to do. And I mean, we see this a little bit more with the I don't know if it's in this episode or the next one, but our little troop from the bathroom, with the sort of archery team members and stuff like that. They have a conversation where it's like, okay, we said we would wait so that, like maybe we should wait a little longer. And then that one guy is just like, I just always want, like, maybe it's better to leave in the dark, maybe it's better to leave in the light. And
I like him.
Yeah, and they're just kind of going back and forth. And I think all the groups that are sort of left at the school are realizing that they're on their own and have to figure something out. So it's no longer going to be shelter in place. You've got to figure out what your next plan is. And I agree though with Kyle, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more about them figuring out what provisions or getting something, right? Because they aren't going to last long without water. And that is definitely, we're not seeing anything, right? In terms of what they have access to.
It's not helped that Namra is the one coming up with these, with the survival rules. She's saying 3 days to dehydration. I think it's more like 2.
It's a little earlier than that, I'd say.
But she's at least laying out the rules. But also she's been saying a lot of just random weird stuff, like, oh, just when one thinks hope is lost, one might fall into despair, and we should not despair. And they're just like, cool saying. Can we fly the drone now? In episode 5. But she's saying a lot of like stuff, but it's not all actually that helpful. That actually is helpful, but I think it gets lost in the Namra sayings, because she does just have a habit of saying stuff that isn't actually like actionable. If Anjo had said that, I think they would be on a water mission, and they do need to be on one, and I assume that's going to have to happen in the next episode, because look how much Bearsu and Changsan are running around. These guys need to hydrate.
That's what I'm saying. Like Bearsu and Changsan, I thought they were setting them up to go on a water run, but then for some reason they're just like, oh no, we're just going to go get a cell phone. And it's like, you guys have done this already. You've already like tried to acquire the cell phone, looked around, no information useful online. And then like, whatever thing with an internet connection gets smashed or thrown out a window or whatever. Like this does feel to me a little bit like we're spinning our wheels with like, just why do you want another cell phone? Like, why not go get some water or some food? These kids would be starving by now. So I'm having a little bit of a problem with the mechanics of what everyone's actually walking around doing, because there's no cohesive plan yet, which is realistic, but not narratively satisfying.
Yeah, I assume that the plot device or the story that they were trying to push with the cell phone mission was, well, first of all, we get to see what happens to what's her name? The nerd from the roof. Mm-hmm. Yoonji, maybe.
Yep.
She's our first. Is she the first? No, I guess actually we see Mr. Lee turn before we see her turn. In this episode we see 2 zombies turn in weird ways. Mr. Lee at the police headquarters gets sacrifices himself to let the cop get away, knowing that his laptop at the school has the antidote or information about it or something. And then when he turns later on, he looks weird. And not like a zombie.
He's very controlled. Like he's actually not out there doing he's not out there doing like the zombie things that we've been seeing them do up until this point. Like he's walking, he's kind of looking around, he's focused. He isn't just sort of full of chaos and mayhem. And, that again, I mean, I guess you could think that at least I'm trying to figure out all the rules here. I think that given that he's sort of the person that started all of this, I mean, I was kind of thinking maybe he somehow has an immunity or something, but
it
who
seemed
knows?
to me, well, maybe there are some exceptions to this that call my observation into question, but it felt to me like the folks who were turning in these weird ways, and I think Mr. Lee was that was an awesome scene because it was unexpected and very chilling to see him just like, kind of Terminator walk through the police station instead of going all nuts. I was like, oh, this guy looks like he could like really fuck some people up. But the it seemed like they were most of the characters who have turned in this way had extensive interactions with the
bullies,
with Patient Zero,
Okay.
the son of Mr. Lee. And so I was, because in the next episode, mullet guy, and then in this episode,
Yoonji, I think maybe.
mhm. So I was wondering if they were like, maybe like if you were exposed to like an early version of the virus, you have, it's not exactly a virus though, but you have like some sort of like immunity or something, like, you know what I mean? That's kind of where I thought they were going with it. But there are other kids who did interact with Patient Zero who just turned like normal. So like the ringleader of the bullies is kind of that way.
I don't
have we
know.
seen him turn? I don't know if we've seen the ringleader yet.
I thought it was in the early cafeteria scene, but maybe not.
Tracksuit bully. Tracksuit bully was bitten by the school nurse, but I thought the ringleader bully got away from that interaction. That we haven't seen him since.
I think you might be right. But I also, Kyle, I was trying to figure this out too, and in fact, like I was watching it, and I'm like, is there something? Are they going to do a flashback scene to show that something happened with these particular people and their interaction with Patient Zero? But the sort of hospital girl also had extensive contact with him and turned, I guess she had kind of a delayed turning too. But the thing that I was thinking, and that it's sort of how he keeps describing the fear thing and that people are afraid, and he sort of went into it willingly and didn't seem all that afraid. Like, I mean, he didn't seem to be psyched about it, but he wasn't. Both him and I feel badly because that nerdy girl, I keep forgetting.
I think it's Yoonji.
Yoonji and like all of that, and Guinam, all when they're turning are not necessarily paying attention to the fact that they're like, her focus is to get the phone, his focus is to get Chansen, and then Mr. Lee is just kind of like martyring himself. So I feel like it's going to be somehow connected to like adrenaline, or like everything he kept saying about like the fear thing makes me think that that's what it is, but maybe I'm wrong. I mean, maybe
there's also a voiceover at the end of the episode, at the end of episode 5, saying if the virus discovers how to, what is it, like how it learns the human immune system, then we'll have a new species of human.
So maybe it's mutating. But do you think, okay, so this is my question.
But if that's, sorry, Jay, please continue. But I have a grumpy thing to share about that. But
it's probably my grumpy thing too. But why don't you share yours and then I'll share mine?
Well, it wasn't a virus. He said it was like a hormone or something that he extracted from the mice. Yeah. So I don't understand all of this. It like the science of this is very, very fuzzy, even by the standard of zombie shows, which is like he extracted some sort of like hormonal response from the mouse and then injected it into people, but a hormonal response cannot like mutate. It just doesn't make any sense. Like the whole thing is kind of falling apart. And also the mutations, if their mutations are happening in people who are very far apart physically and are not interacting with the same zombies, so like is it just a spontaneous mutation in all three that occurred randomly? It's not like a new strain or something. I don't know. I'm having a really tough time with all of the explanations we've been offered for these new style of zombies.
That was partially my grumpy thing, but my other grumpy thing is, are they trying to imply that the phone somehow helped this thing discover the consciousness or something? Because it almost
Oh,
seemed like that's what they were trying to kind of make the leap for. And if that's what they're saying, oh please,
yeah.
please don't do that. So we'll see. And I agree. I was like, how is this? Because I thought, and that was sort of what I was trying to figure out with like how they were reacting. I was like, if it's a hormonal thing and it's just that they're supposed to be like zen about being bitten or something, all right, maybe that's kind of an interesting idea. But then it's like, if this virus learns, and I'm like, oh wait, virus now, like what? So anyway, we'll have to see a little bit more as we get into this. Maybe they'll give an explanation and maybe they won't. But you know, I did, but I did like the weirdness of the turning of those three particular characters because it was chilling and kind of cool the way
Yeah.
they did it.
I feel like we're seeing a lot of like smart zombies or like king zombies in media recently. Like Army of the
Yeah.
Dead had this too, where there's like,
Yep.
you know, a superset of zombies that aren't like all the rest and who kind of control them or something. I'm interested in the fact that that's now becoming like a little bit of a trope.
Yep. It's been a little bit of a trope in other stuff too, but it's definitely something I think that you're seeing a little bit more in these particular storylines, maybe as a way to like sort of like mix it up a little bit, I suppose. But it is I'm curious about like kind of what set that off though. It is because it's kind of been there in the background in certain stories and more so in like books and things like that. And then now it's sort of making its appearance more frequently.
So one of the reasons why Yunji ended up going downstairs and getting bitten and turning into a zombie, even a elevated version of one, is that her little buddy up on the roof, Cholsul, told her Guinam had scheduled a Facebook post of the video that they had taken of her disrobed, and that it was going to go out at 9 a.m. And this is like now a time pressure for her to be like, oh, either I have to kill myself or I have to go downstairs and find Guinam's phone and stop that post from going out, I guess is her mission. And I don't understand why
fuzzy understanding of how the internet works. If she thought she could stop it by just smashing
all the phones.
Yeah.
Well, and also,
well, my issue here was that Cholsul didn't even try to dissuade her by saying, look, who's even going to see this video? Everybody's dead. We've just been up here saying everybody's dead. Everybody's a zombie. Like all your Facebook friends are zombies.
Right. And they can
alternate
see
name
it.
For the show.
Yeah.
Alternate name. I agree. I thought the same thing. And I was like, this is just, I mean, but look, I mean, this was an incredibly embarrassing, horrible thing for her. And she's not focused on that. And, you know, she still keeps saying some pretty, like, I don't know, just really fatalistic, weird things just in general, about the whole situation. So she's not exactly in her right mind. And, you know, I think this is just sort of like, there's a reason why she was up on the roof and going to jump off, because this stuff was just way too much for her. And so she's, you know, she's a little bit clearly in denial that the world is not in the way that it was before. But in her mind, she makes these comments where, oh no, it's still the same, you know, and everybody's zombies but us. And like, she makes all these like weird little comments. So I agree. I think it's a little far-fetched. But then it gets her into the office and, you know, and then we have Bear Sue and Sean San in there to do, you know, to get the phones. And so there you have that whole interaction.
I didn't really like the way either that Cholsul, the production seems to make Cholsul like this spineless coward for not agreeing to go with her, to clearly just go die. Like that is what happens to her within seconds of leaving the roof. She's mobbed, and he actually makes the smart choice here. So I was a little bit like, no, Cholsul, don't feel bad, dude. You're doing, you're not screwing up. You're maybe going to live for another day or two until you die of thirst. So you're fine.
Yep. But I also, I mean, there were other things like within this where they do talk about, I don't know, I do like the references to other zombie films or the awareness of that. And there's one where they talk about how maybe they should go to a grocery store, because the characters in zombie movies who go to grocery stores seems to work out for them in the end, which I thought was pretty funny, which I think has to be a direct reference to 28 Days Later, right?
Yeah, it also just shows the archery bathroom crew's motivations are really Hari trying to find her brother, who it turns out is one of the members of Homeroom 2-5, and Mijin really just wanted to go to the supermarket for cigarettes. Like that's her main motivation. I thought that it's interesting. These two, maybe not these two episodes, but certainly episode 5 has several narrowly missed connections with the drone. Just missing them, with Changsan jumping into the fire riser tunnel, just missing them. So they are clearly like this force right now on this show where they can fight off zombies at a limited fashion. They're tough, right? But they just can't connect with the other survivors, which is a kind of a shame.
Right. But I do I liked the general like pacing of this. I did like, again, the choreography. I thought that, the stuff with Chansen and all the stuff with the school, I still think is really well done. And I did like that there was some change of environment, like when it's going kind of between the school and the police station. And I do like how they sort of give the Byeonchan is he's been in custody. He finally, after a long time when he could have just told them everything after they were trying to drag it out, finally gives the detective is it Jay, anyway, gives him sort of the mission and gives him the idea that, hey, my laptop's at the school, and it gives him this mission to go and get it. The choreography in the police station I thought was great, and everything surrounding it. I also thought the just watching how everything plays out there, it's a really fun movie to watch, and it took a lot of care. And again, I wonder, like all the other scenes, I wonder how many times they had to do the shot of this whole thing with everybody coming up the stairs, and then when they're outside, all the sort of everything surrounding the car and all. It's really fun when he finds the sort of junior police guy.
Oh man, that was the other part that I thought was just straight up a comedy. He's like, "Where'd you even go to school?" "I'm still in school." "You're still in school?" "I'm in graduate school." "Oh, graduate school." And I was just
I think he's an undergrad. It's there's definitely some context getting left there on the translation, because Seoul University is apparently this crazy prestigious place to go to school, because it's come up with the archery team too, right? You're never going to get into Seoul University. So this cop, who apparently looks dumb, because Jae-ik always makes fun of how he looks, and actually is kind of dumb around the baby too, is actually a sophomore at this prestigious university, and Jae-ik just can't believe it, because
he's a sophomore at the university and
a cop,
a cop at the same time. They weren't like, "Oh, you're like a part timer or something, or an intern." He seemed like just a regular old cop. Maybe he's working his way through school, but it seems tough.
So just to finish out episode 4 real quick, we have the confrontation between Guinam and the principal, which goes in Guinam's favor. And how is he stronger than the principal? I don't know. Maybe are teenagers, do they have freakish strength? But the principal doesn't stand a chance. And then Changsan decides that he's going to stop Guinam from threatening him with murder by recording it on his phone. That fails, and Guinam just kills the principal anyway, and then they have their chase.
But also once again he records it, but who's gonna see it?
Yeah,
right. Well, that seemed okay.
Apparently it worked for a hot second, because when he first pulled out the phone, Guinam put the knife behind his back, ooh, don't videotape this. It's the beginning of a fun chase that continues into the next episode. But there's the mystery ending here, where the knife gets thrown. You don't see if it goes into his back or not. And there's the scenes of Captain Soju, Anjo's dad, going up the stairs with a fire hose as he gets the assembly people to the roof to get their helicopter. And I thought this was pretty interesting too. although it's not explained at all how he gets away from all those zombies when he's coming up the
No,
stairs,
and they
breathing
try
weird.
to psych you, and they psych you out. I mean, come on, you're walking like a zombie, man. You know your buddy's up there. Don't make him shoot you, or don't make him take you out. It was like, oh, come on. Anyway.
I could have used a scene showing how he had maybe like cats cradled the stairwell with the hose or something, because there's nothing to explain why the zombies wouldn't have been right behind him.
Right.
I don't know.
They were kind of like plugging up the opening, but with just the sheer mass of themselves. So maybe they just all got stuck against each other and filled that whole stairwell up.
Yeah, maybe.
So kind of just like a big zombie, like Fatberg or something.
Yeah.
You know, like what happens in the sewers.
Totally. In episode 5, we get some scenes of what's going on with government. And it's crazy to think that this is day 2 of the outbreak, and they've already gone to martial law. They've convened this martial law group of the military, and that kind of progresses as the episode goes on, because they eventually turn off access to landlines and cell phone as well as data. And
Right. And then they're like, and we're going to do our best to rescue any survivors. It's like, well, how are you going to rescue them? Because they have no way to get a hold of you, which again is like obvious what's going to happen. But like, I did like that, you know, I did think that the whole, you know, the hoax on the subway in like outside of, and anybody who's kind of like outside of the main zone, is, you know, there's rumor there, people don't believe it. I mean, we've seen, and I thought that it was a good tie-in from the you know, the beginning of the episode where we're kind of seeing somebody trying to go into the inside and people are still not quite believing it, but then you see people doing hoaxes on the outside and making fun of it. And you know, I think that to me it's like, okay, well, you could absolutely believe that all of this would happen. And then the government is trying to shut it all down because, you know, if they know or don't know or whatever, they're just trying to like keep this button down and not stop, like cause a panic.
And I think that, you know, the rapidity of the response is supported by real world efforts by the South Korean government. Like if anybody was going to be all over this stuff, it would be South Korea. If this show were set in an American high school, it'd be like, you know, I know there are zombies, but you can't declare martial law because, you know, I have to have the freedom to go shoot zombies. Yeah. So.
Right. So I thought that was really, I liked how they were showing this and how rapidly it was all moving. And then they sort of spliced this with the experiences, especially the experiences that we're seeing that are happening with Anjo's dad and that group and what they're, you know, what they eventually see. You know, they're used to, like, Assemblywoman is clearly used to being listened to and, you know, taken care of, and then is really shocked at what's happening.
I mean, there's some real world parallels there where she's like, take me to the control room. And speaking from experience, the people who work in the control room never want elected officials in there with them.
Oh, of course
not. Like that's universal. So I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah.
But like, I got like a thrill from watching those scenes of the quarantine camp and from the police headquarters scene in the last episode. And it's a lot of it's coming down to just the number of bodies this production is throwing at the screen in these scenes. They have no fear of these giant set pieces. The police headquarters obviously had a lot of moving parts and like the chained together prisoners. Some of them were zombies, some of them weren't, but they were working at odds. And this one, it's just like refugees, soldiers, mist. Oh, I'm like blown away by the scope of this show a lot of the time.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that even looking at the opening sequence, which doesn't, every time it comes up, I try to figure out if I think it's CG or not. And I think I keep coming down on the side of it's not. It's just like a huge number of people that the camera is just descending toward. I think it is pretty much exactly what it looks like.
Good grief. Either that or they're really good at CGI.
Well, and even thinking of like just looking at all the big set pieces from the opening of episode 4, and then we see all this stuff around like what budget are they having to work with this? It must be massive. Like this is just like a huge production. Like even if they are sort of supplementing with some CGI, like like it's not, it's even if they're doing that, that still requires a budget too. So it's a pretty, this is a pretty in-depth and good production. So I don't know. And I mean, maybe we are seeing a lot of the same people like as extras in the crowd, and they're just okay. Crowd around the police station is now like zombies around the police station are now like the zombies near the rioters or whatever you're gonna do. So maybe there's just like a whole group of roving extras that just kind of have different sort of like outfits and things like that. But regardless, it's still a pretty big group. So I don't know. I've been really enjoying the heck out of the show personally. And I did not watch forward, even though I really, really wanted to.
Well, good for you. I mean, also in episode 5, in addition to the quarantine camp and the government scenes in the school, we have like there's a cool sequence with the drone. Going up to get the drone is interesting because they keep using this hose. HA, you were concerned that with 12 episodes, we'd see a lot of repetition. And Kyle, you might think that we already are because there have been like 2 missions to find a cell phone, like you said.
Yes.
But by going up and down the hose a second time to get like the drone equipment, they don't show any of that. They just do it. And I feel like that's good.
Yeah,
otherwise it could get a little bit old, even though going up and down that hose is probably really difficult and it could be dramatic, but they're choosing not to show that. And I was like, okay, so cell phone signals just got turned off. How is this drone going to work? All the drones that I've ever worked with have worked off of cell phone data, but they have it on they've got it on like a remote control unit that I guess has good range. And frankly, Glasses, his name is, what's his name? He's really good at piloting.
Yeah. As somebody who the only time I've ever attempted to pilot a drone flew it directly into a tree immediately for no reason. It's like imagine it's like an empty field and then like a drone in a tree and I just like somehow like just boom right into the tree. I was very impressed with the drone flying skills. I thought this whole sequence was awesome though.
Yeah, it was cool.
Gives them finally some context for what's happening in the rest of the school and world.
And that context is what they're looking for, right? Like we're saying, oh, why aren't they going for water? Because they really want to know what's going on more. And so the phone was part of that. And when Bearsuit came back without the phone, that's when they launched Operation Drone.
Right. And I did think that they were going to do a little bit more with the drone because obviously they put a message on it. And I thought that was maybe going to play more into it, but it doesn't. Or maybe it does because the message kind of gets blown away, right?
Yeah.
Even a very dramatic fashion. But I did like how they're using these different tools so that it isn't becoming stale. So you get to see like the drone footage and what's going on all around the school. And, you kind of get to visit, even though it's kind of missing the archery group, you get to see sort of like how overrun the whole school is with sort of those outside shots and then the aerial shots just expanding out beyond the school boundaries. I thought that was really a good way to show it. And then tying that in with the one student's parents that are in the truck, and just how that really hits home because how are, all of them are now, of course, thinking, I think they were already, but this was just proof of like, hey, no grownups are coming to rescue us. The only grown-up that was semi-effective is Mrs. Park, and who knows where she is because she's out, trying to save the most useless student in the school.
Yeah, they don't make a single appearance in these 2 episodes.
No. And I mean, the students even say like she's probably not dead because we didn't hear anything, but we don't get to see them in this episode. And then also, even though they don't know it, we have seen that Chan-san's mother, who went on her daring rescue mission, she died tragically, and they don't, so there's a lot of things that are going on and their realization that they are probably going to have a mission to get out of here, which probably is going to happen in the next episodes, I suppose. And then I think it's also just seeing how helpless the adults that are connected with them. I mean, I guess I'm still thinking the Assemblywoman is Nabra's mom, but definitely Anjo's dad is wanting and had like voiced that he wanted to go and like get his daughter, and the assemblywoman had convinced him not to, because she's basically like, hey, if I tell all these people to go and do that too, they're going to go off and rescue. Are we going to send them to their deaths? And he backs down, and he basically, and she's like, you have to do your duty. So it's like a choice between family and duty. And you know, like I just thought that all of this context and all of this character building and was done very well, and I liked how much it was switching between the different groups and getting just the different perspectives, which I think is a setup obviously for other stuff. And then we even have our detective and his little the little college dude, like they're the ones who find the baby. And you know, I think as much as I hate to say it, but I think that baby would not be alive, unfortunately. Like just the
After an
dehydration
entire,
alone.
like an entire day.
After the dehydration, but at least the detective comments on that, and they like try to help. But they're in this position now where they've got this baby, and so that stops their mission to the high school. So I just feel like they kept this moving along in a really kind of interesting way. And I think we're going to see some of the groups come together at some point, probably in the next episode is my guess.
I did think that was a little narratively weak. Like there's so many people in the show who have some sort of connection
right
to Chongsan Chicken. And, you know, we talked even about, you know, who amongst, like, is it going to be the dad? Is Chongsan's mom going to go back there and find the baby? And instead, like, it's literally an unbelievable coincidence that these two cops would just happen to duck into that particular chicken restaurant that has so much connection to all the rest of our characters, that was kind of like, okay, well, this is just like plot mechanism, like, oh shoot, somebody needs to save the baby and we just killed the mom.
Do you think it's significant that the scene where they duck into there is filmed like a Benny Hill sketch where it's all sped up?
Yeah, I think it. I mean, come on. I think Chongsan Chicken is the Kevin Bacon of this particular series.
Yeah.
It's the thing. It's
everybody has to go there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we think Chongsan's mom is a smart zombie or a dumb zombie? Because we don't see her again.
We don't.
She really gets like taken apart.
Yeah. But her last face that we see is still hopeful or yearning toward Chongsan in the high school. And it was the same way Yoonji went out, because she was getting eaten, but still crawling toward the teacher's lounge, right?
Yeah, so maybe we will see her again. I think that would be more likely than not.
Yeah, I definitely think we're going to see her again. I kind of feel like she's going to be another one of these new kind of zombies, which are kind of quickly adding up.
Well, if it is that your focus isn't, you're not afraid and you're not freaking out about changing. If that's it, and your mind is focused on other things, and you're being like Zen about that, not Zen, but not focused on the fact that you're getting eaten, then probably that's going to be a piece of this.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting to see. I do, the other thing I was thinking in terms of like how these kids are interacting with adults, like the whole dynamic, as much as Guinam is a bully, it struck me that like, even Chongsan is trying to save the principal guy, but honestly, the principal is doing exactly what Guinam said he was doing. He was trying to send Guinam to, like, he was like, go get my car and you can put yourself in danger and go and do this, and you're going to do this because I'm an adult. And part of me is kind of like, well, I don't necessarily blame Guinam for not doing that and for defying the principal. And so it's like, that was kind of an odd feeling to have with the power dynamics.
And Chongsan has none of that context because he kind of comes into that interaction halfway through.
And of course, he's not going to believe Guinam in terms of like at face, because he doesn't, we know who Guinam is as a person. But I just thought that was kind of like an interesting thing. And we saw it a little bit with the athletic teacher too. Like he was really angry that the kids were defying him, and then the kids were not comfortable about defying him, but they knew that they had to survive. And especially, like, unfortunately, they got several of them died because of the coach. But I thought but in this case, this isn't that. Guinam definitely kills him flat out. Like there's no there's no zombifying going on here.
Yeah,
It's
and
just,
there's no real good reason for that to have happened
right,
either.
right,
Like
right.
we're not concerned that Guinan is actually a good guy in this
Oh
scenario.
no, we're not. I just thought it was like an interesting sort of thing to throw in there, is that,
Yeah.
this is the guy that's been hiding under his desk and not helping the kids all along. And, it kind of like it feels like there's no way he would have survived regardless, but this was like an interesting way to take him out of the picture.
He's an interesting character. Like his first, while he's barking at Guinan to go get his car, what's he doing? He's changing his socks.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm gonna put on my fresh pair while you go get my Mercedes or whatever it is. It's pretty funny.
One thing that they haven't really delved into too much, or if they have, it's been in a way that is difficult for me to understand as like a non-Korean, is the age difference between these kids. Because, Stuart, you had that question earlier about like, oh, could a high schooler really overpower like a grown man? But like in America, like a high school student, quote unquote, depending on the particular grades that the high school covers and, the ages of the kids could be, as young as 12 or as old as 19. You can have pretty young ninth graders, maybe I can't remember whether 12 or 13 is the kind of like youngest age that a typical ninth grader would be, but you can definitely have close to graduation time seniors who are over 18.
Yeah, but teenagers are also really wiry and powerful. So
yeah, and especially older teenagers. That's my point. Like
I think even younger teenagers could probably overpower me. So I'm weak and old. Like, come on, like they've got all the adrenaline and hormones going. Kyle, like
Guinam looks like he looks like a pretty old 25. Student. Like he's bigger and taller than the rest of the other kids.
Well, some of this cast suffers from a Beverly Hills 90210 where there were like 32-year-olds playing high schoolers in Andrea's case. I don't know if you guys remember that show, but in this case, Nayeon, I think, is played by a 29-year-old. I don't know about the rest of them.
But I think that all of the kids stuck in the classroom are supposed to be roughly the same grade because they're all in the same class.
Yeah, and we know just with like I like with the younger brother, like he's like a year or two younger, and
oh yeah, the archery student is the other kind of older student because they said that she's heading to university next year.
Right, and she's graduating, which is why the coach was giving her such a hard time. And so,
and she also looks kind of bigger and more capable than the rest of them.
Yeah, so I kind of thought that she was around like 18-ish, and then she's kids
27. Just so you know.
I don't mean in real life, but I mean, look, this is the same thing with a lot of shows. Like I don't know if either of you seen Never Have I Ever, which is an awesome show, by the way. But one of the main characters, like the main character in the show, she's 18, but her big crush is 30 years old. She's playing like opposite of this guy. In real life, he's 30, but he's playing like a 16-year-old kid. So, I think it's just what they do in terms of like casting. But
yeah, the girl who plays Anjo is actually 18, or she was probably 17 when this was filmed. So at least some of them are very close to what the age that they're supposed to be. But yeah, I mean, Hari, the archery lady, she is a lady. Like she's 20.
Oh yeah, she's definitely.
Guinam is actually 23.
My main point, age of the actors notwithstanding, is that in a typical high school, you have people who are essentially physically children, and then also people who are essentially physically adults.
Yeah,
and so Guinam seems like the higher range of that.
I was really happy. Like he's been, laying out people and kids and zombies throughout this show so far, and I was really happy to see Chung-san get the better of him in their fracas at the very least.
I thought that fracas was also awesome. That was
very well
choreographed. Yeah.
Okay.
Again, how did nobody get injured in that scene too?
Oh yeah, but also, those kids that were hiding out on those things, all that, they'd survive that Lon and freaking Johnson and Guinam come in and they just destroy those kids. And
no, come on, the boy, I think he was the last one actually.
He tosses him right down.
He tossed Chung-san down, and then Guinam gets rid of him. So it was horror trope karma right there.
I guess so, but still, he came in, invaded his like safe space on top of the bookshelves. But that choreography was amazing. for everybody involved. I thought that was so cool, the way that they shot that, and then the jumping from bookshelf to bookshelf.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so cool.
Very cool.
And again, how many times? Because you gotta like, you have to only be able to shoot that once, right? Like, unless you've got all those like stacks
my
of books
God.
glued together, like, because they're all falling all over the place.
So
Like,
in addition to the army of actors, they have an army of production assistants who are restacking all those
right,
books.
right. I mean, I guess you could tie them all together to make it a little easier, but still, it's like, that's all I could think watching this. I was like, oh my gosh, this is just incredible. So, really, some like the set pieces on this have been pretty fun. Like, I just like, if you're going to be in a school, and I kind of was hoping that they were going to do this when they showed the kids on the bookshelves initially,
Yeah.
but then they didn't. And when they came back here, I got very excited. This is how nerdy I am. I'm like, I want library based adventures. It's going to be, so they did not disappoint.
We definitely had our library-based adventure, but now the library, I think, is done. It's full of
Yeah.
zombies.
It is full of zombies.
All the books have fallen over, and we'll be moving on. Like now, Chang-san is in the music room. There's somebody in a room behind him, maybe, we're not sure. And there is something happening under the piano. And it's funny because his friends find him on the drone, and they're like, okay, we know where he is. And he's like stalking towards something with a chair in his hands. And they're just like, now that we know he's alive, let's go and look outside the gates. So they kind of just leave him in the music room, and I'm sure they'll try to get reunited next episode.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, any other parting thoughts before we wrap this one up?
It was definitely 100% the right decision to pee out the window. I don't know why they came up with so much like toilet stuff. Like, dudes should be peeing out the window. Like, I was totally baffled by that entire sequence in both places. Like,
okay, but I'm also gonna say, like, you could, like, the girls could have done that too, as long as you like held their hands, because that's what you do off boats and stuff like that. So
Very
like,
true.
come on, this would have been much better than the whole weird poop room. But
a little bit riskier for the women, but the dudes, like, most of the dudes I know would have been pumped to pee out the window. Like, that's like,
I also don't think that they would have discussed it. I think they would have just done it, right?
Yeah.
So
Like,
maybe this is a Korean versus American thing where we're more willing to pee out of windows. And Bearsu is like hard, like he brings it up, but he's also like kind of chagrined to have to do it. And of course, Daesu really leans into the topic, and he's like, "Do you have to poop? How about you? But do you like to poop?" So I thought, yeah, again, another great scene with Daesu, and then of course
he's really great, and I hope that this doesn't mean. I mean, I'm worried about what this means because we like him so much.
We should be worried about all of these kids. Like, there are some who are definitely still on the fence, even though we've learned just about everybody's names now.
Mm-hmm.
There's Jimin with her mom's Sunday, not Sunday, but it's spelled like Sunday, but it's pronounced Sunday place. And then she sees her dead parents at the end of this episode too, which is a huge bummer. There's Pink Sweater Girl, and there's Hari's little brother, and Glasses Junyoung. Those four, I don't have high hopes for because of how little they've been developed.
Right.
Yeah.
They are a bit red shirty, no?
Yeah. So I think we should not be too attached to any of them. I don't know. Maybe Anjo, maybe Changsan, maybe Bearsu. Maybe Namra gets through this, but we'll find out.
Oh, and we should also say, I feel like Anjo and Chonsen definitely had a few moments in this where there's some like a bit of admitting, and especially when Chonsen disappears, Anjo's pretty upset. And there's an acknowledgement, like there's this whole weird thing between Bearsu and Chonsen where they're like, but when they're out the window and they're like, they're trying to like go and get the phones, and suddenly Johnson's bringing up the whole dating thing. And that was like, I mean, it's a funny exchange, but it's like, okay, now is not the time, buddy. But I think we'll see more of that, obviously. So, like, I think that they're at least not, hopefully, I don't know. I think they're going to play that out more, unfortunately, but at least there's some acknowledgement on her end that she does care about him. And because there's some discussion about, once again, Chonsan Chicken, the Kevin Bacon of this particular show, but she talks about how the chicken is, they're waxing poetic about it, and they're like, Annette, when we leave here, we're gonna get some chicken. It's just like, okay, but there is some connection there, and they're basically talking about their former lives and all that kind of thing. So I think we'll see more on that front later. Anything else that we want to add? Other predictions for this next thing? I'm going to say we see more from Assemblywoman and Anjo's dad in terms of a potential breakout / rescue mission.
Let's hope.
Within
24 to 72 hours or 12
right.
to 72 hours. The window of examinations is massive. We're going to see Guinam hunting Changsan.
Yep.
And maybe we'll see Yoon Ji use her new zombie powers for some sort of destructive. Maybe she'll join forces with Guinam.
Oh, maybe, but I don't think so, because that's the one who posted the video.
Oh, yeah, they're mortal enemies.
Yeah, so maybe she's gonna be a semi-good zombie, or at least you know, chaotic good, chaotic evil, chaotic good.
I feel like these two episodes had a lot of folks fall to being zombies that I wasn't expecting, and it kind of has closed off some storylines that I assumed were going to be longer, like the detective and Mr. Lee, you know, learning more about the virus, or revealing more about the virus together, and Changsan's mom reuniting with Changsan and all this kind of stuff. So I'm a little bit caught off guard by the folks that we've seen get zombified in the last 2 episodes, and I am interested to see where they take it from here. I think we're going to learn a lot more about the capabilities of the quote unquote smart zombies.
Yeah, and I was also like Kyle, especially. I think the biggest when they took out Changsan's mom, that to me was like, oh, and I also thought Nerdy Girl was gonna be like a much bigger.
Yeah.
I thought there was going to be a lot more. I kind of thought where they were going with that is that she was going to confront Guinam or something. So that's where I thought it was going, and I was wrong. But I am curious to see what they do. And I think, you know, we're going to see Changsan's mom again zombified. And I think they aren't done with those storylines. They're just going in a very different direction than I thought. So. So we'll see. And also remember, so far nobody else knows about this computer other than the detective. So, and this other, he did share the knowledge with his very helpful sidekick, but they are the only people that know that is in existence. So I think we have to see them either share that knowledge or go themselves and somehow retrieve the laptop.
Yeah, there's a lot here to get done, but luckily there's 7 more episodes or hours of content to go.
Oh my God.
We're not even halfway.
But we'll be halfway after next time we get together to talk about episode 6 and 7. We'll be a little further than halfway. And we'll see if any of our predictions come true. And oh my gosh, so let us leave you here, gentle listeners. But, you know, let us know what you're thinking of the show. Get at us on Twitter, Reanimated PCast. Email us at reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com. Our show notes will be online at reanimatedpodcast.com. And we will be back again with Kyle from Seattle.
See ya. I was unprepared. I had such a good one last time, and this time
so natural. I'm doing it differently. I'm throwing you under the bus. H.A. Conrad in the Brooklyn.
Ciao, and thanks for listening.
And for me, Stuart, thank you for being here, and we'll be back next time. Toodles.